Welcome back to Clue Me In, where we unravel the world's strangest mysteries, disappearances, unsolved crimes, and eerie cases that leave more questions than answers. I'm Liv.
I'm Kay.
And I'm Grace, resident skeptic, occasional believer, and full-time overthinker.
Every episode, Kay and I break down a mystery, and Grace reacts, theorizes, and ultimately delivers her definitive answer.
Today we're covering the haunting case of the Silent Twins, two sisters who only spoke to each other, communicated in a secret language, and were at the center of a chilling, mysterious tragedy.
Ew, that sounds like The Shining, and I don't like twins very much.
Yeah, you're gonna have so many questions about this one.
Okay, let's dive in. June and Jennifer Gibbons were born in 1963 in Barbados, and they were raised in Wales. So, from early childhood, they were inseparable. Again, they were twins. They were just like nearly completely silent. They didn't really talk to anyone except for each other.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they could physically speak, but they rarely did outside of their home, and almost never to anybody except for one another.
Yeah. And they had, like, basically a private world where they created their own language. It was a bizarre mix of, like, distorted English sounds and even gibberish that was so fast, like, no one would be able to understand it. Teachers and doctors even tried to intervene, but the twins wouldn't talk to anyone but each other. They would even often, like, whisper in their own language in public, which made, like, other kids want to avoid them.
And this started, like, from birth?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there was actually a period where they did talk. And then I can't remember how old it was. It was young, like 3 or something, is when they kind of
right
started
after they learned
just,
how to talk.
right, just talking to each other. And they also they both had like a speech impediment. So some people think that had something to do with why they decided to stop. But yeah, very, very strange. But even more than that, when they got older, they developed like a mirror-like bond where they would like copy each other's movements exactly, and sometimes they would just completely freeze in place until like the other one responded.
So I know I joked about it being The Shining, but this literally sounds like The Shining.
I haven't seen The Shining.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, very similar. I kind of got those vibes when I was reading about it.
Is The Shining twins?
Yes.
There's a part in the story that's about twins.
Okay.
And they, like, stand at the end of the hallway and, like, stare.
Oh,
Yeah, and they, like, do the same type of movements.
Okay.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah, they walk together in the same exact way.
Okay,
and, like,
that's exactly,
yeah.
like, I've seen videos of them, and they do, like, and when they eat even, like, they pick up the spoon at the same time, they chew at the same, like, rate, like, it's weird.
That's a little bizarre.
Yeah.
Well, so this is where I feel like it gets from, like, weird to, like, creepy.
Yeah.
So, obviously, in their schools, they were kind of outcast, but they weren't just any outcast. They were famous for their deeply disturbing fiction that they would write.
Oh.
Yeah, so they wrote stories filled with violence, murder, and twisted themes like possession and guilt.
That's healthy.
Yeah. So one of their most chilling tales involved a character who had a near psychic connection to death of another character. And that death mirrored Jennifer's own mysterious demise.
Interesting. I don't even know what to say. I feel like I just am, like, shook.
Yeah, I know. I told you, this one's like a one. Yeah, so this is all kind of like early childhood, but once they got into like their early teens, things kind of took an even darker turn. They committed arson and theft. They set a fire to like a nearby warehouse. And they caused like massive damage, and they were arrested for stealing and all this stuff. And when they were, like, asked about it, questioned about it, they just, like, didn't show any remorse, but they didn't really show any feelings at all. Like, just stared at investigators in silence and, like, just expressions cold, unreadable.
But they were, like, caught doing it?
Yeah, they called it in, actually, I think. Like, I can't remember the details, but I think they, like, called it in, and then, like, they came, and they just, like, nothing.
Weird.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and so, like, these weren't just random acts. Like, they were part of, almost it seemed like a deeper rebellion for them. Some of their stuff, like the burning, seemed very ritualistic. Almost as if they were, like, trying to burn something away, like something a part of themselves. And from that, they were both sent to a psychiatric hospital called Broadmoor, known for housing some of the most dangerous patients. And they were only 16 at this time.
That's sad.
Yeah, it is. It really is sad. I mean, their case is a sad one. Like, it's creepy and, like, ugh, but it's also, like...
They were so young.
Going on?
Yeah.
What was their family like?
Their family was relatively normal from what I've read. They had siblings.
Yeah.
They had, like, an older sister and a younger sister, I think. And, yeah.
So there wasn't, like, any apparent trauma where they...
Not
known.
outright that we know of.
Right. Like,
not public.
some families
Right.
you look at and you're like, you can see it.
Right, yeah. And the other
Interesting.
siblings seem to have grown up fine, and
Wow.
yeah.
That's just bizarre.
I know. Yeah, very, very weird.
And, like, so while they were at this hospital, they, like, wrote deeper stories, and it just kept getting darker and darker, and, like, a lot of the staff would, like, avoid them because of these stories. So they just continued their writing, but it just got worse and worse.
So, like, in the hospital, they were just to themselves and didn't really talk to anybody else?
Yeah, and, like, some of the other chilling things that had happened was hospital staff reported that the twins would often, like, stare at nothing for hours, like, together, stare at nothing for hours, not speaking, not moving, just locked in almost like a trance-like stare. And they seemed to communicate with no one but themselves through their, like, eyes. Yeah.
Okay, so then this is where we get to the twist that no one saw coming. So they were about to be moved from Broadmoor to another unit. And Jennifer, before she was released, told a nurse, "I am going to die." And the nurse thought this was just like another strange comment from her, but it became true. Like, literally on the way from this hospital to the other, she died suddenly, like in her sleep. No signs of illness, no previous symptoms. What? Yeah.
Was it like the story earlier that they had written?
Yeah.
And the thing is, Jennifer's premonition wasn't just like a one-off type of thing. Before her death, she told her sister, "One of us has to go for the other to live."
What?
Yeah.
This just keeps getting weirder.
I know. And some people believe that she thought of her own death was like a part of a pact that they had made. Like a pact to free the surviving twin from like all of the psychological, emotional entanglement that they seem to be in.
Yeah. And it was like right after her death that June started talking.
Oh, I was just about to ask.
Yeah, like she started talking to people. She started living her life more normally. She even says that she feels that like Jennifer did that so she could have a life, and they couldn't have done it.
What?
Like they couldn't have lived separate
So why
lives.
didn't they just decide to
I don't know.
be normal together?
There was like something in them that like
connected
when they
them?
were together, they just like couldn't. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of the like theories in a little bit, but like one of them talks about like it being a psychological trauma thing with each other, about like not letting the other one go.
Yeah.
But and as your face is, just like you, the hospital staff was like shocked by this. She went from nearly a mute person to someone who could carry on a completely normal conversation. Doctors speculated that the intense bond between the twins, kind of like we were just talking about, kept June in silence. And then Jennifer's death just like broke that psychological barrier that must have been there. Yeah.
That's so bizarre.
Isn't it weird?
Did she stay at Broadmoor? Or did she go home?
She is out now. Like this, she's alive and well now. I don't know how long, because they were going from Broadmoor to another like less
like step
restrictive. Yeah. And that's when Jennifer died. And so I would assume that June stayed there for a little bit, but I don't know.
But eventually she was
eventually she was released, and she went on to lead a fairly normal life.
That is so bizarre.
Yeah.
I feel like...
I feel like she would have had to stay there for a little bit. I mean, that's such, like, a psychological thing that would need, like, therapy.
That it was, like,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like I don't really hear, obviously, anything like this happen.
No, it's a weird case. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into some of the clues that we've already discussed. Okay, so the first one is the secret twin language. Mm-hmm. So the twins spoke fast, coded versions of English, so complex that no one else could understand it.
Mm-hmm. And then there was the synchronized behavior, like mirroring each other's movements and stuff.
And then there's the one that creeps me out the most, the disturbing fiction.
Yeah.
So the stories that were filled with dark themes, including murder, possession, and eerie connections to death.
Yeah, that's creepy. Mm-hmm. And then the arson and theft and just all that stuff that led to their placement at Broadmoor.
It's like they wanted to go there.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
It
kind of seems like
yeah.
they were just doing one thing after another to eventually be sent there.
Oh, so weird.
Yeah. So then you have life at Broadmoor. So at the psychiatric hospital, they were completely isolated and only communicating with each other, which, in my opinion, makes their connection stronger because they have no one else to speak with.
Mm-hmm. And then this is the one that's the weirdest to me, is that Jennifer said before she died, like, I'm about to die. And then she just died.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, on a side note, I want to know how they decided. Who was going to go.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
And I would have loved to know what their secret language actually, like, was. So so someone could understand.
Right.
Yeah. Well, if it was, like, a pact that they decided.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if you're that close.
I think that's what it was. Like.
But for June to then become, like, talking to normal people and, like, become more normal. Yeah. I feel like because they were so connected, what I would have pictured happen is June stay the way she is. Because the one person she was connected to died.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it does feel kind of intentional. I don't know. It's just weird.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then after Jennifer's death, obviously you have June's sudden speech, like you were just talking about, that she spoke fluently for the first time in years, and it was like perfect English and everything.
Yeah.
And then finally, we have the pact that Jennifer's death seemed to fulfill, which was that one twin needed to die for the other one to live.
Wow. Lots of plot twists there.
Yeah, for sure. So let's get into like our theories. So the first theory is one we've talked about in past episodes, which is that shared psychosis, folie à where people believe that the twins suffered from this, which is just a shared delusion where like one of the twins' mental state influenced the other, and then their isolation and behaviors like may have been a result of that psychosis.
Right. At such a young age, though.
Yeah.
And to last that long.
Years.
You know what I mean?
Years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, then another theory is about trauma and isolation, and it has more to do with, like, them being twins and possibly being bullied. Others think that twins' silence and bizarre behaviors were a defense mechanism to protect themselves from the outside world rejection. Like, years of bullying and isolation could have led to their bond intensifying.
Yeah. Which, like, that makes sense, especially from, like, a therapist's point of view.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it happened when they were so young. Like, who was bullying them at 3?
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And it's not like just couldn't understand, like, if even their family couldn't understand them because of their speech impediment, that could be so frustrating that you just...
And only they understood each other, so why bother talking to everyone else?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I can see where that, like, created even more of a, like, a protective bond, too, of each other.
Right. Yeah. And then there's some people who claim that it's supernatural connection. So
those are my favorite
theories. The more mystical theory. Yep. Psychically connected, so with one twin unable to live without the other, like literally. So if Jennifer's death was a fulfillment of like a supernatural pact where one had to sacrifice themselves for the other, that's a creepy one.
Yeah, creepy. For sure.
Yeah.
And truly unexplainable, if it is that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And then going along with, like, mental health, counseling, all of that, skeptics argue that it might be, like, a simple case of a misdiagnosis, maybe of, like, schizophrenia or another condition.
All right, Grace, let's solve the case. What do you think?
I feel like I just always love the supernatural answer, which, anyway.
Those are the most fun.
Yeah. Especially, like, twin telepathy. I feel like putting that with, like, all their other issues. It might, I don't know,
Yeah.
So, I'm going to say, like, again, from a mental health professional point of view, trauma is always going to be my answer. Always, always. But for the sake of the podcast and having something fun, I'm going to say supernatural connection of some sort, which, I don't know. I just want to believe that because it's just so spooky.
Well, that definitely goes along with your, like, creepy twin.
Yes,
like.
I just don't like, they freak me out. I don't know.
Would you like to explain why, Grace?
Yeah, why do they freak you out so much?
Specifically, identical twins, because they come from the same embryo, and I just don't like it. Fraternal twins I could get behind a little bit more, because they each have their own embryo. But it's the identical
If anyone's
twins.
Gonna have, like, a supernatural connection, it's gonna be someone who's from that same embryo.
Same one. And it just boggles my mind, and I mean, I understand how it works intellectually, but it just freaks me out. So I feel like it's gotta be something supernatural.
I love it. Thanks for listening to another episode of Clue Me In. If you want to dive deeper into the mystery of the silent twins, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review.
Do you think it was a psychic connection or just a heartbreaking case of codependent trauma? Let us know what side you're on. You can find us on Instagram at cluemein_podcast.
And if you're a twin, we want to hear from you. Do you feel a supernatural connection to your other twin?
See you next time on
Clue Me In.